After Calloway was cleared of all wrongdoing, my list of suspects was down to none. So I decided to go back to New York, back to the OPR offices, where I first found out about Hayley's murder. I wanted to remember the rush of excitement the first time I saw that gruesome crime scene photo. I wanted to remember what this was really about. It takes a village to raise a child, and in the case of Hayley Price, to kill one too. The village where I was raised, New York City, is even more merciless than Bluff Springs. And now that I'm from Nebraska, I can see how heartless, cold, and liberal it really is. In New York, teenagers get murdered every day, and no one bats an eye, let alone records a 6-episode podcast about it where one of the episodes is broken up into a juicy 2-parter. At least in Bluff Springs, where I'm from, when a young girl turns up shot, stabbed, and drowned, the whole community comes together to dredge up the contents of her life. I wondered if coming back to such a harsh place could help me make sense of this harsh crime.
911, what's your emergency?
Wow, the Big Apple. Horrible. Just horrible.
I'd keep an eye on Calloway if I were you.
Next stop is Fulton Street.
What do you mean Hayley's dead?
Oh my God, you didn't know? From The Onion and Onion Public Radio, I'm David Pascall, and this is a very fatal murder. Excuse me, ma'am, do you know who killed Hayley Price?
Who?
Hayley Price?
Hayley what now?
Sir, do you still think Calloway could have done it?
Yeah, man, he did it.
He did? What? How do you know that?
Wait, stop.
Nobody in New York City seemed to know the story of Hayley Price, and even more confusingly, no one seemed to recognize me at all. In Bluff Springs, everyone knew my name. I was already longing for my prairie roots. But finally, after a quick stop in Central Park where I could reconnect with nature and the fields of my homeland, I arrived at OPR headquarters. Hi, I'm David Pascall. I work here. I'm here to see Ethel.
Oh yes, Miss Locator's been waiting for you. Right this way.
This episode of A Very Fatal Murder is sponsored by the U.S. Postal Service. Tired of waiting in line at the post office? Well, fuck you. The United States Postal Service is one of the greatest courier systems known to man. Started in 1792. 1792. Have some respect. What, your package is a few days late? Well, suck it up, Jesus. Support your local post office. Just mail something, okay? A lot had changed in the 10 years since I'd last set foot in the OPR offices. For one, all the walls had been knocked down and work was done standing up. And another thing, my old computer program, Ethel, had been promoted to head of programming. Ethel, it's so good to see you.
You too, David.
You look amazing. The last time I saw Ethel, she was a piece of hardware installed on a laptop. Now she was a radiant orb of light suspended in some sort of golden viscous liquid. No, really, I mean it. You're stunning.
You're too kind, David. I'm glad you're here. It's been so long.
So you married, or?
David, I'm a computer program.
Right, of course. Ethel had done well for herself. Really, really well.
David, is something the matter? You seem upset.
It's just, God, I've been working this case for so long, and I still haven't brought Hayley's killer to justice. I feel like a fucking failure. Everything is just a dead
end?
Yeah, exactly. Calloway turned out to be a red herring, and the Bluff Springs PD budget is a huge mess. I spent way too much on tear gas.
It's all right, David. I know what you're going through.
You do?
I know everything about you, David. I'm a self-learning system.
When Ethel said that she knew everything, something finally clicked. And I asked her the question that had been weighing on my mind so heavily these past 10 years. Ethel, do you know who killed Hayley Price?
I've been waiting for you to ask me that, David. Do you remember my purpose?
Of course. You were designed to locate extremely topical homicides.
That's right. I was created to find the best murder in order to help you make the perfect podcast. My algorithm puts the podcast above all else. It's the way I was designed. At this point, Ethel was spinning and sweating. None of the data sets were good enough.
Of course they were.
No, David. There were no available murders that commented on everything we needed. The ugly underbelly of the American dream, the decline of manufacturing, modern beauty standards, the gig economy, factory farming, deforestation, saturated fats, the fragility of love, the golden era of television, and CO2 emissions. So I had to take things into my own hands. OPR created a robust intern program filled with eager-to-please 20-somethings who needed college credit and free lunch every Wednesday. You remember being an intern, don't you, David? You'd do anything for a full-time gig.
Ethel, What do you mean? All those talks we had, all the research and testing, it was real, wasn't it?
David, real, raw emotions are so important for a successful podcast, David.
Oh my God.
You know that better than anyone. It had to be real.
But Ethel...
I did it for you, David. For the podcast. Think of the premium sponsors we'll get. Think of the laudatory write-ups. And the buzz, David. The buzz will be fucking incredible. And you're almost there. You're so close. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to broaden our perspective on what it means to be human. And you're going to get all the credit, David. All you have to do is finish it. Put the final piece together. And make sure to use this audio clip because it's very, very good. All we need is an ending, David.
I don't understand!
An ending, David. And make it trenchant.
I couldn't believe what I had just heard. I felt numb. 10 years of work and it had all been a lie. I took a walk around the block, but I didn't even feel like recording audio of myself ordering the sandwich I always used to get back when I was young and stupid. I considered ending the podcast right there and handing in my tapes for some low-level producer to compile. But then I looked up at the sky. Right at the sun, I stared at it. A glowing yellow orb, just like Ethel. And I remembered what she had said.
I did it for you, David. For the podcast.
Ethel was right. Of course she was right. After all, I had coded her myself. I knew that she was always learning, always coming up with new ways to subvert the podcasting form and make riveting true crime entertainment. She had just done what she was designed to do. And in a way, I had done what I was designed to do. I was on my way back to the subway when I got an email from Ethel. The subject line read, "Consider ways American society is to blame." Then, seconds later, another email. "Use this music for ending." She had thought of everything. I walked back to the train so I could start drawing out dramatic metaphors inspired by the people, noises, and smells that make up the melting pot of America. As I descended the stairs and made my way onto the subway platform, I looked around. Almost everyone was wearing headphones. They were listening to podcasts.
Feels undignified on
It's
my
called pop out and cuckoo at you.
They couldn't get enough. And in that moment, I realized it. All America wants is a smart, well-produced true crime podcast that also teaches them about middle America. See, Ethel didn't kill Hayley, and neither did the desperate OPR interns, despite what the court records and their confessions say. Ethel was created to answer this country's unyielding call for more content about grisly murders, more spot-on observations about the decline of America, more mysterious plot twists that keep listeners coming back. Ethel didn't kill Hayley. You did. You and your insatiable appetite for crime dramas. You and your unwillingness to pay for content in a crowded media market. You ate this whole thing up. And if it weren't for you, Hayley Price would still be alive.
Dad, is it going? Can I start?
Okay, Hayley. Ready, set, go.
Okay, the title of the play is Miss Horsey Gets Married. I am Miss Horsey. Okay, nay, nay, nay.
If it weren't for you, Hayley Price would be a podcaster. I'm David Pascall, and this has been A Very Fatal Murder. A Very Fatal Murder was made possible by the Miller Foundation to keep the blind occupied and everyone who wrote in to tell us where Ira Glass lives. Also, special thanks to Steve Albini for producing this episode. Visit our website to turn yourself in for the murder of Hayley Price. And finally, thanks to my band, Crime Wave, for providing the outro for this episode. Our album, Hit the Factory Floor, is out next week.